Okay, now let's get right back into the independent record stores, what you all came here for. So this next one is from Left of the Dial in Santa Ana in Orange County. And you guys might remember a couple podcast episodes ago. Actually, I believe it's the last episode. God, it's been way too long since the last episode. I really gotta get my plans in order for that. But this is the store I stopped at that I talked about there. That was in sort of that town square area where I talked with a guy working there. He was really cool. And I got a couple of records there. The other one I might talk about in a future video. But for now, the one I'll share here is, got more Aerosmith. We got Rocks, which is, I can definitely say more universally positive stuff about. They're 1976 front-to-back classic, regarded by a lot of people as their best. I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to calling it my favorite from them as well. You know, the two main singles from this, Back in the Saddle, Last Child, but really all 9 tracks of this are just quintessential, awesome, classic hard rock. Especially, like, Nobody's Fault. That's got, like, this grinding heaviness to it that you didn't really see a lot from Aerosmith, like, even in their heavier, earlier days, you know? Then you got Rats in the Cellar, which is almost like a classic punk song, a combination which has some nice lead vocals from Joe Perry. Home Tonight, which is one of their first great, like, ballady type songs. Sick as a Dog, which, fun fact, which I read up on, they actually switched instruments midway through the song, and that's why it's, like, only bass for a few seconds of it, which I thought was just this cool little classic rock tidbit that you don't really get too much of anymore, that kind of spontaneity that can only come from a band that has expectations to make an album every year. Great song regardless. You got an awesome little drawing thing in here that really says everything you need to know about Aerosmith in 1976. And yeah, like, if you're into any hard rock bands today, they definitely owe a debt of gratitude to albums like this, so definitely, even if you don't have a vinyl collection, just dig up this album any way you can and give it a listen. Now we're going to be moving on to the record store on my very shirt, Lose Records at Encinitas. This is my hometown one. I've been going to this for basically every record store day since 2012, including Black Fridays. And I realized that if I was going to do a big vinyl haul video like this, I couldn't not go to this place. So the first one, even though I've been talking about all older music today, it is an older band, so I suppose it fits enough. I got this 7-inch of 2 new Blondie songs, Fun and My Monster, from their upcoming album, which is gonna have it basically has like a lot of like modern artists writing the songs, which I suppose is pretty cool. Maybe a little cash grabby, but you know, it'll probably still be good. Fun is a decent enough pop song, but My Monster, the song on the B-side, the song written by Johnny Marr, it definitely sounds like something he would write, especially in some of the guitar work. But yeah, that's a great kind of alt-rock song from them. I really should have more Blondie on vinyl. I haven't really gotten into them beyond the hits, and I feel like I should. It's also one of those that comes with like a $2 off coupon for the album that's going to be coming out, I believe, next month, so might get that. Might let you know what I think in some form. Who knows? Okay, now I talked about this comedian, Shelley Berman, on What Mark Spins, one of the earlier ones since talking about the Bees, obviously. He's this comedian that I saw a lot in, like, the bargain bins over there. And, you know, you naturally connect with someone that you share a last name with, since, you know, I don't really think there are that many musicians out there with the last name that I've seen, unless you count the Mark Berman that has the Twitter handle Mark Berman Music, which is really making me consider going under a moniker when I'm doing music in the future. But anyway, these Shelley Berman albums are actually they have an interesting distinction because they're not only my only stand-up albums in my collection, they're also definitely the oldest. Like, these 3 albums I have, Inside Shelley Berman, A Personal Appearance, and Outside Shelley Berman, basically from 1959 to 1961, I believe. And 50-something years later, there's a thing here and there, a cultural thing that doesn't quite translate, but for the most part, like, I wouldn't hesitate to say the guy was a little ahead of his time, like, especially with, like, those phone call bits, like, because not only are they really funny, but you have to think about all the planning that had to go into them and, like, how they're structured and timed and all that, with just him standing there giving all the replies and stuff. And the cool thing about this album is that it's not just, you know, a bunch of, you know, set up punchline type stuff, or just, you know, little stories here and there. So there's basically like 3 or 4 like full-length bits per side, and they just kind of persist and build as they go on, just him on stage like that. And it's very unique, and I don't really see too many people now doing that. kind of thing. So it's definitely worth digging up. All these three of these albums combined were about $4. So, you know, another advantage of getting stuff vintage is that you just dig through a bargain bin and you can find some really cool stuff. Really hoping that I'm some kind of distant cousin to this guy. He's still alive now. He's like 90, so who knows?
I can't find my door, sir. I don't know where it is. No, I'm not denying I have a door. I'm in the room. There must be a door. I didn't materialize in here, but I cannot find the door. Now, where do you think I'd find it? Near which window? I don't have a window. Now, would that be an odd place to put a door next to a window? I mean, if you walk through, you fall right out of the building, wouldn't you, sir? I mean, I have one door over here, but that's the door to my closet. Oh, I thought I had one. Maybe it's the door to my bathroom. You're kidding.
Speaking of cool little things to have in a collection, you got Eric Clapton with a Promises single. It's nice to have stuff that you know wasn't meant for public consumption, because it's like this generic, like cardboard, like with a stamp here and a thing back here. It says not for sale, promotional copy only, 33 1/3 for a single. Which, I don't know, maybe that's what they did for radio stuff. It's just the songs Promises and Watch Out for Lucy. Both pretty good Eric Clapton solo stuff from the mid-late 70s. I actually have the album that both these are from, Backless, on CD. God, I feel so edgy right now. Next up, we're continuing the Elton John stuff with Caribou. So, another interesting thing about the fact that he was so prolific in the 70s, the singles from this, and you got Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, but the real track I wanted to highlight from this is called Ticking. So it's this 7-minute opus where it's basically just him on piano doing this incredible piano work, and it's this long, sprawling story about this kid going through mental anguish and eventually, spoiler alert, going on a mass shooting, and all like the turmoil from all parties involved, from his parents to like the people involved in that situation, both as a victim and surrounding it. And as you're reading along with the lyrics printed on this inner sleeve here, it's genuinely kind of heart-wrenching to listen to. A gorgeous closer on this thing that just goes into the psyche of a troubled youth. And then you got This Is the Album cover. What I'm saying is that a lot of 70s artists didn't really care too much about albumization. Oh, and you got The Bitch Is Back as the other single from this thing. You got I've Seen the Saucers, which is about an alien abduction. Dixie Lily, which is like some like New Orleans kind of story. There's definitely some really good songs here. The funny thing is that I saw a quote on the Wikipedia page from the producer about how he basically hates this album and everything about it, including his own production work. And I don't really hear anything that wrong with the production, really. It sounds like, you know, how an Elton John album would be produced in the 70s. Just kind of makes sense. Maybe it's not his best track for track. You do get a little bit of stuff running together with how you expect him to sound at that time. It's still by no means a bad Elton John album, and believe me, one of the albums I'm saving for a Mad Sound segment is, just that. I'll just leave it at that. And the last record I got at Lose is U2's Under a Blood Red Sky. Always looking to get more U2 on vinyl. It's another kind of formative band for me as I was getting into classic stuff. I'm not much of a live album guy usually, but man, just the energy of like post-war era U2, especially in songs like Sunday Bloody Sunday, 40, and stuff like that, where there's just so much fiery rage going on politically. Or just the more fun songs like Gloria or Party Girl. 9 tracks with the track list that's basically the greatest hits of everything from War and before that. Like, you also got I Will Follow, New Year's Day, etc., etc. So I got this, I got The Unforgettable Fire. I'm getting into one more thing in a couple of minutes. So yeah. Okay, so the last record store I'm going to be talking about here, Port of Sound in Costa Mesa, also another Orange County one. And I went to this place with my friend Nathan, who I mentioned earlier. He lives just like a few blocks away from there, basically. Just about a mile away from the observatory where I saw Japan Joys later on that day. And, you know, since I hadn't been to this place before, I figured I'd go on a bit of a spree. But luckily, I ended up spending about $15 combined for everything I bought there. So we got a few 45s first off. We got Alice Cooper's Only Women Bleed, one of his bigger hits from the Welcome to My Nightmare era. Even though, funny enough, I shouldn't say funny enough, it's actually kind of heartless and cruel, but the song in question, Only Women Bleed, is about a woman under domestic abuse, and the B-side, Cold Ethel, is about having an affair with dead women. Naturally, the songs caught a little flack, like, even in the 70s, for obvious reasons, but, you know, the framing of the songs and all that, and the fact that, you know, it's Alice Cooper, so you gotta allow for a bit of suspension of your normal standards and all that. It's not really nothing to get all that worked up about. I do love how, with this subject matter, you still got it in this super oldies, biggest hits by the brightest stars. I don't know if this is what it was initially released and packaged in, but I just find that really funny. I mean, especially since this does say Capitol, and this was released on Atlantic. I don't know if they're connected or anything. See, that's the nice thing about stuff like this. Stuff from like 40 years ago. Like, you don't know the history behind the thing you're holding in your very hand, and something about that has a nice little mystique to it, I suppose. Regardless, I've been trying to build up an Alice Cooper collection of like his 70s and 80s stuff, and this is just a nice little thing to have there of a couple of his bigger hits from that Welcome to My Nightmare era. Then we got more U2 in the form of When Love Comes to Town, their song with B.B. King from Rattle and Hum. Not their most celebrated release by any means, but I always thought this was a pretty good kind of blues, rock kind of crossover song. B.B. King, of course, legendary blues guitarist who unfortunately was one of many of the legendary musicians that died last year. It's kind of nice. Obviously, he was just playing lead guitar on a U2 song, but, you know, sentiment is what counts, I suppose. Okay, moving on to the LPs, we have Peter Frampton's I'm In You. Am I the only one that finds the combination of this album title and cover kind of disturbing? Just so many locks and chest hair, and you got this big thing in the insert about his fan club, and then another kind of insert inside the sleeve about his fan club, and there's just so much fan club. I've never seen so much fan club involvement in one standard pressing of an album. I was talking about earlier about U2 and the fact that I don't really have that many live albums. I don't have Frampton Comes Alive. I have had a couple of his studio albums in the past, and I've wanted to like them so much more than I do. Funny thing, this is the album that came after Frampton Comes Alive, and you can definitely see he's, you know, pivoting a little bit more toward the AOR kind of adult contemporary kind of crowd with some of the ballads on here. Doesn't really fit his whole, you know, guitarist extraordinaire, pioneer kind of thing going on, you know. I will say the two covers on this thing of I'm a Roadrunner and Signed, Sealed, Delivered, I'm Yours, those are both great. And this 8-minute song, Won't You Be My Friend, is pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I might sell this on Discogs, really, though that might mostly because I don't want this guy just staring me down from the middle of my collection every day, haunting me. And the last record I got from this place is the Lowdowns, Digging a Hole in the Middle of the World. So I don't have too much obscure stuff in this thing here. This is definitely an exception to that. So I was just looking through the bargain bin while I was waiting for Nathan to meet me at the record store. I was looking through that bargain bin in the front, and I noticed something yet you don't see in a lot of $3 and under bargain bins at record stores. This was in its shrink wrap, unopened, and this is a 20-year-old record at $3, and it was even advertising that it comes in this nice red vinyl, which still looks great. So, naturally, you get a little curious, and, yeah, this is just a pretty good slice of 90s SoCal punk. Doesn't really stand out too much from, like, the other bands that are getting big at the time, at least in the underground side of things. You know, there's kind of an Offspring, NoFX, you know, that whole world, that whole side of things going on, maybe some early Green Day. It's not quite hardcore punk, it's not quite pop punk, it's just kind of in that nice middle ground, you know? And it's definitely worth picking up if you can find it for the same price that I did. In the OC area, where I assume you would most likely be able to find this, it has a couple great songs on it, like 10 Feet Tall, Pillbox, especially Pillbox in the lyrical department about kind of kicking a pill addiction. The last track, She's Dead, that one's just kind of creepy, but it's still worth hearing regardless. Yeah, Lowdowns. See, this isn't all surface level dad rock. Okay, and the last record here, because my battery's running out. So you guys might notice that throughout all this, I haven't really talked about the quality of the pressings of the records. And really, that's because all of them are in pretty good condition, all things considered. Yep, even my Crosley here didn't ruin that. Hear that? People that are way more deep into this stuff than I am, this is doing me just fine. Thank you very much. Hasn't ruined any of them yet. At the same time, though, I've gotten all these things from record stores, and this one I've gotten, Genesis's Wind and Wuthering, a nice kind of roundabout thing from the first record I talked about here. I got this from a thrift store for $2, and if this is any indication, it might not be a good idea to get releases by majorly legendary bands for $2 at a thrift store, because when you play this record, let me just show you here. Keep in mind, I went through this with like one of those vinyl cleaning kits like 2 or 3 times, and still got all these scratches, all this wear from like 40 years of just bleh. It's like what you think of. It's like what someone that isn't a vinyl collector, doesn't know anything about the vinyl resurgence, like just thinks of when they think of an old vinyl record. Like when you drop the needle on this thing, what you hear is 30% prog rock, 70%... Oh, I got spit all over this generic sleeve. What a waste. You deserve it, though. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this had its own inner sleeve and lyric sheet before, but it doesn't now. I'm surprised there isn't like a copy stain on the corner here. It's just a bizarrely bad pressing, especially since, again, I have a couple albums from the late 50s in here that sound way better. Because there's crackling, which adds like a nice kind of vintage warmness to it, and then there's the crap going on here, and I mean, I'll keep it, because one, I couldn't sell this for anything on Discogs, and two, it's just nice to build up my Genesis collection in general. From what I can hear, there are a few good songs on it, like Your Own Special Way, which I believe was their first song to chart in the Hot 100 in the US, and it was one of their first albums with Phil Collins singing, so that's pretty notable. But yeah, this seems like a fitting note to end it on, is like, hey, it's not all going to be great when you're fishing for vintage stuff, because you might come across this if you look in some sketchier places. And that's where we're going to end this long, winding vinyl update. I might do more of these in the future. This is actually kind of fun. Let me know what you think about all this. You have any thoughts on these albums? I'm going to be going more in depth into a few of the things here with weirder backgrounds and stories in a Mad Sound segment in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. Follow me on Twitter for updates and all kinds of weird stuff. Follow my channel for good stuff. I'm rambling. God, I'm a YouTuber. Ugh. And, bye.